Hey guys, welcome back to Daska Discusses. Today I'm going to be giving you guys some advice on some movies to watch on Halloween night. Let's do this. So I thought, what better way to celebrate Halloween? In Australia, it's not celebrated as much as in the US, obviously, but I'm a big fan of it because, well, I get to watch a horror film. Yes, you can watch a horror film anytime you want, but Halloween just has that little special thing for me, I reckon. And I'm going to give you guys my top 10 films that, let's just say you have a whole bunch of friends over and you're like, what do we watch? What's a good scary film to watch? Well, here's my list. And starting off at number 10. And just a brief reminder, I'm not going to be reviewing the films in the top 10. I'm just going to be giving you the titles and giving you a brief outline as to why they're in my top 10. So let's do this. Number 10 comes Wes Craven's Scream. Well, you can't get past that iconic mask. Now, I know there's a lot of horror films out there, a lot of horror bad guys out there that wear masks, but there's something about this whole kickoff, the way Wes Craven kicked off the slasher films back in the 90s and the late 90s as well with Scream, and that epic opening sequence with Drew Barrymore. And well, you could say it gave birth to a lot of slasher films in the late 90s. You know, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend and all that as well. But Scream is definitely up there. You've got, again, like I said, if you've got a whole bunch of friends over and you're looking for it, it's number 10 on my list as to something that you can sit down and it's basically like that 1990s feel to it. Have a bit of a laugh as well, it's a bit of a comedy as well in that. In terms of gore factor, it's not too bad, but obviously it's rated MA here in Australia. Not good for, none of these films are actually good for any kids under 18, you could say. A lot of them are R-rated, but Scream, definitely number 10 on my list. Number 9. Now there's a bit of a tie here between, I know I said top 10, but you know, there's a bit of a tie here as well between two found footage films that I think are fantastic. One being the Blair Witch Project, which I previously reviewed a while ago, and the other one being Paranormal Activity. So it's interesting to say that I couldn't really separate these, but if you're in the mood for like a found footage horror film, definitely got to choose between one of these two. Blair Witch Project, definitely up there. Paranormal Activity as well, if you wanted their more modern kind of feel. I still think Blair Witch wins out on this, but again, you want a found footage kind of film, definitely one of these two at number 9 on my list. Number 8.
Hello, Daska. I want to play a game.
Yep. I remember vividly watching this with a friend back in the early 2000s, and I must say two Melbourne uni students created this as well. Back in the day, it was Lee Whannell and James Wan. Saw is definitely on my list, it's number 8. I can't get into it if you haven't seen it, but it is quite gory. It's MA rated here in Australia. I don't know what it is in America, but it is quite graphic in some parts, and obviously not for kids, but it's got that epic tale, the way the narrative's told, and the way it all comes together at the end in that epic last sequence, which I ain't gonna spoil because that's too epic to spoil. So yeah, definitely Saw, that serial killer kind of murder mystery, a mixture of Seven, a mixture of Silence of the Lambs, a mixture of a whole bunch of things, but the violence is turned up a notch here. So anyone who's squeamish, maybe not for them. Number 7. Yeah, talking about being squeamish, number 7 comes in at the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. What's interesting though is that you hear that title and you think, oh, it's going to be really gruesome and chainsaw massacres and everything, but the film itself doesn't actually have a lot of violent scenes in it. However, I think it's just the content and the subject matter which are really disturbing, especially the last act of the film. I think it's brilliantly made by Toby Hooper. It's fantastic. I remember seeing it back, I was probably 17, 18 years old with my brother, and I thought this is definitely exceptional. There wasn't really that many like at night, darkish kind of scenes. It's all in the daylight. Now the remake was not bad as well if you want to check that out, but again, if you're watching this with a whole bunch of friends, some might find it a bit slow, some might find it really cheesy, the acting from the 70s as well, but in terms of cinema, it's up there and in the top like horror films of all time. If you want something like a modern film, maybe watch the remake, but definitely check out the original. Again, quite disturbing, not for kids, definitely. Number 6. And following on from that kind of disturbing, kind of gruesome, horror film, you could say Evil Dead. The Evil Dead, the original one from the 80s, directed by Sam Raimi, is definitely up there in one of the most grossest and gruesome films out there. Now, it was an original video nasty. If you know what they are, you can look them up on the internet about the 80s and when VHS came out as well. But There is a remake of this as well, which again is rated R here in America and in Australia. In America it's NC-17, so it is really gruesome, definitely not for kids as well. But the original Evil Dead's just something about it, the way it was made, the way it was filmed, a whole bunch of friends in a cabin, unlocking like the Necronomicon, like the Book of the Dead, and well, I won't spoil it from there, but if you're into that kind of like low budget, kind of gritty kind of feel, you can go with Evil Dead, but be warned, it is quite gross and full on at times in terms of the gore factor, so just be careful with that. Number 5. Getting into the top 5, it's very hard to pick them, but here we go, another one by Toby Hooper, Poltergeist. Written and semi-directed, produced, there's a lot of issues here by Steven Spielberg. I'm a big fan of Poltergeist. It made me scared of clowns for my whole life pretty much. That and the original It film. Now, I mean, I went and watched the new It film, Chapter 2, I didn't like it too much, but Poltergeist is something about it that just, it's the soundtrack, it's the editing, it's the story about this family and their daughter gets taken by these ghosts and she's kind of like in the house and there's all these disturbances and they call all these experts to come and see what's going on, and just the way it unfolds. Poltergeist is up there, you got your friends over, you want to chuck in some kind of like 80s nostalgia / Stranger Things kind of vibe, definitely go with Poltergeist. It is quite creepy as well, and in terms of gore factor, yeah, there is some gory scenes, but again, not for kids under 15, put it that way. Poltergeist, number 5 on my list. Number 4. Well, this is again another tie, I know I'm cheating, but I'm gonna just say it. It's definitely a tie between The Shining and Alien. Why? Well, because they're very similar in terms of that haunted house type of feel. One, you've got a haunted hotel kind of feel. The other one's a haunted spaceship kind of feel. Let's not get into it too much, but you know, Stanley Kubrick is one of my favorite directors, and I just love the slow burn of both these films. Ridley Scott directing Alien as well. I can't separate these. I can't put them separate because there's too many films to list on my top 10 Halloween films to watch. But if you're after that slow burn, haunted house feel, then go for The Shining or Alien. Again, people's patience these days with the younger generation, no offense, I'm not saying all, but it's not just the younger generation, just in general, people even my age that just don't have the patience for something like Alien or The Shining where it's a slow burn and nothing much happens for a lot of the film until, you know, leading on to the last act. But if you appreciate cinema and filmmaking, these are 2 definite films I'd go for on Halloween. Number 3, I've already reviewed this in a previous video that I did this year, but gotta be the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Can't go past Freddy Krueger. This was, again, like I mentioned in my review a few months ago, I saw this when I was really young. Probably not the best idea, definitely not for kids. You got a whole bunch of friends in this film that are having nightmares, and then if they get killed in the nightmare, they die. Freddy Krueger, the birth of an iconic horror character. If you haven't seen the original, stick with that, and then I'd probably, I don't know, part 2 is not the best. And then part 3, Dream Warriors, is quite epic. Don't even look at the remake. I know I'm in Elm Street, number 3 on my list. Number 2. Now it's very hard to pick a top 2, but I'm gonna have to go with, again, another slow burn of a film, and it's always in the top 10 horror films of all time. And again, if people hadn't seen it, depends on the context of how you watched it. Yes, I'm talking about The Exorcist, rated R here in Australia, and definitely not for kids as well. Now, the thing is about this is that it depends, I think, on when you watched it, how you watched it as well. I saw it when I was really young. I was at a party, like a sleepover party, and I was quite disturbed by it, and it stuck with me for many months ahead. I think, and then I remember seeing the version you'd never seen in the cinemas in 2001 or 2, which was not bad as well, but I just love the filmmaking in it. William Friedkin, the acting, the directing by him, and the cinematography, the way he goes about telling the story, the slow burn. You know, it's not the disturbing parts about her, a young girl being possessed by a demon, it's more so like the medical part where the mum is kind of trying to like freak out and, well, it's freaking out about what's wrong with her daughter and going through all those tests, and then the final exorcism at the end. But everything about this film is amazing. The soundtrack, the acting, the editing, it feels got this documentary feel to it. Again, these days, if your group, when you sit down to watch it, it's a really slow burn, and if everyone's sitting there at a Halloween party, they will get quite bored, but then all of a sudden, boom, they will get pretty frightened at the same time, or they'll think it's just a laughing stock and a big joke. You can go on YouTube and Wikipedia and check out what happened when this film came out in 1972 or 3, and you can see the mass hysteria. It belongs in the top 5 films, horror films of all time. It should have won the Best Picture Oscar as well. And Mercedes McCambridge, the voice of the demon, should have got nominated for a supporting actress as well as Linda Blair, because her voice work is amazing. Number 2, The Exorcist, epic, but not for kids, definitely not. Number 1, well, look, you knew it was going to be this, or maybe you didn't, but definitely number 1 got to be the original John Carpenter's Halloween. Yes, I know we had the reboot, sequel / not remake, but last year with Jamie Lee Curtis, which I thought was alright. It was a solid 7.5 out of 10. They're going to make another 2 of them, but again, they've got Halloween, the 1978 version, then you've got Rob Zombie's Halloween, then you've got all these other ones that came out as well. I'm talking about the original John Carpenter one with that original iconic score, Jamie Lee Curtis, Halloween night, and you learn about who Michael Myers is. You've got Dr. Loomis in there, Donald Pleasance. Everything in this film is amazing. I know I've said that about a lot of these top 10, but I'm talking about just the way this film is just edited, and the beauty of the soundtrack is epic, and just that whole last sequence, and Michael Myers, the way he goes around that whole night and you see what he does, and I can't even, it's just too many. It's like just an amazing film to watch, and I think on Halloween night, and I've done this for a few years, is to watch the original Halloween film, darken the lights, put the Blu-ray on, and just sit back and see some epic filmmaking that back then a lot of people thought was, gonna fail at the box office, but ended up being one of the most successful independent films of all time, and made a whole bunch of sequels which were, well, not that good. So yeah, we won't even talk about that. But number 1 on my list, definitely Halloween. Now, I've probably left out a lot of movies, guys, that you guys probably thought should be on here. Let me know in the comments what you think I have left out. Like this video if you enjoyed the video, and of course, if you haven't subscribed and you want to keep up to date with my videos, please hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys on the next episode of Daska Discusses. Boom!